Good evening. I'm calling the meeting to order. Could we do a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilmember DeWillis?
Here.
Councilmember Dowd?
Here.
Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Mosley?
Here.
Councilmember Wilden?
Here.
Vice Mayor Coe?
Here.
And Mayor Shaw?
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Would you all join me for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have a brief summary of current events by any of us who are on the dais.
Once again, reminding November 1st for Walk a Mile in My Shoes for the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition. Any information that you may need would be available through Rhonda Bishop, and I don't have all my notes, I forgot them. I apologize, but you can contact anybody at the Homeless Coalition, and we're going to have hats to give away, T-shirts, so on and so forth. So if you're interested, please, November 1st, 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Molly was going to talk about two events the city has this week, and if you haven't been, they're both fabulous. So take the kids, grandkids, whoever, and really attend, please.
Some of the events since our last meeting, on September 18th, I toured a model tiny home in the Sedona View RV Resort, which was amazingly spacious for its 400 square foot size. Bradshaw Legacy Living will be creating a tiny home community of 400 square foot units behind the Corey Ford lot in Camp Verde. Monthly rents are currently projected at $600 to $900, which will include utilities, a storage unit, covered parking, and community amenities. So it will be interesting to see the level of interest in our community for these tiny home units. On Friday, September 19th, I volunteered at Thunder Valley Rally, and I was really pleased to see the attendance this year being higher than last year. It was evident that Parks and Recreation really poured every ounce of their energy into making the event a success. So thank you. On Saturday, September 27th, Council attended Verde River Day. Staff from multiple city departments had exhibit tents set up and were sharing information about the services that they provide. They did this even in the face of multiple rainstorms. And then on Tuesday, September 30th, Council attended an open house relating to the Verde Valley Master Transportation Plan. They're seeking public input to augment the data that they have collected on pedestrian, bicycle, and motorized transportation needs of the Verde Valley. Their aim is to improve safety, accessibility, and mobility for everyone. They're still looking for public input. There is another open house meeting on Thursday in Sedona, and you can also provide input via a survey on their website, verdevalleytransportationplan.com. On October 4th, Council attended the Observe the Moon event. Cottonwood was part of a global community participating in this event. Attendance was great, ranging from little kids who had to get on ladders to look into the telescopes to locals to passerby tourists. I want to thank Community Development and the astronomers of the Verde Valley, also known as Astro Verde, who organized this event. Tina Hayden from Community Development explained that this is one of two events that are held every year that are required for the city to maintain its International Dark Sky designation. And then yesterday, the mayor, city manager Cifuentes, and I went to the station on 6th Street, which was formerly known as the Verde Valley Senior Center. to see the facility and to observe the Meals and Wheels program in action. They also have many other activities, like a free exercise program, lunches, which are supposed to be excellent, and they encourage the community to check out the station and consider volunteering. Those are my updates. Thank you.
Well, this past Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we held our first Heart of Arizona Wine Country pickleball tournament. We had over 50 participants from around the area, around the state, in the tournament. It was a tremendously well-organized tournament run by an organization called Pickleball is Great. And the purpose was to raise funds for Cottonwood pickleball players, and I'm another one to put a shout out to Mr. Teal and his staff for the outstanding support that they gave us and being ready to support us in any way. And so thank you. On the 23rd of September, Council attended a ribbon cutting for the RISE Resource Center here in Cottonwood. The Resource Center is an Arizona state-approved private day school serving students with disabilities from kindergarten to 22 years of age. It is a tremendously well-run school with very motivated and dedicated staff. It was just wonderful seeing the vibrant classrooms and the happy students that day. The Resource Center also runs the Rise and Shine preschool, and it is just a tremendous asset for the city.
Anyone else? Mr. Cifuentes?
Thank you, Mayor. Vice Mayor, members of council. The items I want to brief the council and the public on tonight is, first and foremost, tomorrow evening from 4:30 to 7 p.m., the Cottonwood Police Department is hosting its National Night Out event at the Cottonwood Kids Park. Free, family-friendly event is part of a nationwide initiative that fosters community engagement and strengthens partnerships between law enforcement and residents. At its most basic, it's an opportunity for the public to come out, to get to know our officers and law enforcement, and celebrate neighborhoods, unity, and a safe, welcoming environment. Then on Friday, October 10th, from 5 to 7:30, the Cottonwood Fire Department will be hosting their open house, another family-friendly event. It's free and offers a variety of activities. The public will be able to tour the fire station, meet the firefighters, play games, enjoy complimentary food, watch live demonstrations, and much more. And lastly, the city is partnering with the American Red Cross to host a blood drive on Wednesday, October 22nd at the Public Safety Multipurpose Room located at 199 South 6th Street from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Appointments can be made through the Red Cross donor app or by calling 1-800-733-2767 or through redcrossblood.org using the sponsor code CottonwoodAZ. And lastly, Mayor and Council, if I could, I know it's been mentioned several times, but I was blessed to be able to attend the Thunder Valley Rally on both days. And the work that our staff does, at first I wanted to kind of make a list of those I had seen, and then there are those behind the scene. And so I'll just blanketly say that I was so impressed with our staff and the work they do and the hard work they do leading all the way through Sunday. That event was a success because of the staff that we have, and I very much appreciate them.
Okay. Next, I have a proclamation. Whereas domestic violence is a pattern of coercive control and abusive behaviors used to gain and maintain power and control over an intimate partner that can include isolation from family and friends, financial, emotional, and physical abuse, and sexual assault. Domestic violence knows no boundaries and impacts everyone, regardless of race, religion, age, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, and graphic location. And whereas 41% of women and 26% of men report having experienced contact sexual violence, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And whereas domestic violence is a public health issue that affects all of us, and to address it, we must apply our collective attention and resources to interventions to address the consequences of domestic violence and the myriad of other issues, including mental and behavioral health, homelessness, and substance use disorders. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month is a national campaign dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence, every October, organizations and individuals unite across the nation for a national effort to uplift the needs, voices, and experiences of survivors. And the City of Cottonwood Council is proud to join this effort. And whereas partnerships with community organizations, healthcare providers, and law enforcement help provide support for survivors, including trauma-informed advocates and support for those seeking help. And whereas survivors don't have to go it alone when they are ready, there are resources to help, including the Verde Valley Sanctuary at 928-634-2511, the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-SAFE, the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence Helpline at 602-279-2980, and Arizona 211 at 211. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on the 7th day of October 2025 by the City of Cottonwood Council that October 2024, it should say 2025, I think, is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This month, we reaffirm our steadfast and unwavering commitment to helping survivors of domestic violence where they are and work tirelessly to provide the systems and supports they need to heal, hold spaces for them to rebuild their lives and share their stories, and center our efforts to ensure no one is left behind, and that domestic violence in all of its forms is not tolerated in our community. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be affixed this 7th day of October 2025. Would you like to step forward?
My name is Pat Jansen. I am the president of the board of Verde Valley Sanctuary, And with me, I know, probably most of you know Jesse Johnson, who is our executive director. The time has come for us to stop considering domestic violence a family or private issue because it impacts the entire community. Today, we recognize the important roles of the public and private sectors, nonprofit organizations, communities, and individuals in helping to prevent and address domestic violence and create a culture that refuses to tolerate abuse. Domestic violence affects thousands of people here in the Verde Valley and across Arizona, causes significant harm to the physical and mental health of our survivors and their families, and undermines their economic stability and overall well-being. According to a report by Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence, in the past year, over 100 victims lost their lives in Arizona because of domestic violence. While significant progress has been made in reducing violence and improving services and support for survivors, much work remains to be done to expand prevention efforts and provide greater access to safety and healing. The Verde Valley Sanctuary began 30 years ago, that surprised me, and our mission is to provide safety, services, and comfort to survivors of domestic and sexual violence. In the fiscal year 24-25, our agency provided services to more than 1,500 survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, which included nearly 9,500 bed nights between our emergency shelter and transitional housing, and answered almost 1,300 crisis hotline calls, a 28% increase from the previous year. During National Domestic Violence Awareness and Prevention Month, we honor the tremendous dedication of advocates and service providers, honor the courage and resilience of survivors, and recommit ourselves to standing with them for safety, dignity, and justice. For those in need, our crisis hotline is open 24/7, 365. Please call 928-634-2511 or 1-800-930-7233. You may also visit verdevalleysanctuary.org. There's still so much work to do, and it will take all of us to do it. On behalf of the Verde Valley Sanctuary, thank you to Mayor Ann Shaw for your tireless efforts to support not only our agency, but other nonprofits across the city of Cottonwood. And to all the council members, thank you for proclaiming October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you, President Jansen, and Director Johnson as well. Glad you're here this evening. The next proclamation is Cities and Towns Week, October 19th through 25th of 2025. Whereas the citizens of Cottonwood rely on the city of Cottonwood to experience a high quality of life in our community, and whereas cities and towns in Arizona work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to deliver vital city services such as water and sewer utilities, fire, police, and emergency medical response to ensure safe communities. And whereas cities and towns in Arizona also provide services and programs that enhance the quality of life for residents, such as parks, utilities, street maintenance, libraries, community centers, and recreational programs. And whereas it is important for Cottonwood to continue to provide the excellent delivery of services and programs that our citizens have come to expect in our community, and whereas it is one of the responsibilities of Cottonwood officials to ensure open and accessible government through frequent communication with citizens using various avenues and means, and whereas through participation and cooperation, citizens, community leaders, local businesses, and municipal staff can work together to ensure that services provided by the city of Cottonwood can remain exceptional elements of the quality of life of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Cottonwood joins with the League of Arizona Cities and Towns and fellow municipalities across the state of Arizona in declaring October 19th through the 25th, 2025 as Arizona Cities and Towns Week.
Yes, absolutely. All the directors here too.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. 2 more. 2 and 3. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure where to place these, but I think I'll go ahead and let these stand as call to the public, even though there is an agenda item that relates, if that seems okay.
Mayor, it's up to you as the chair of the meeting. You could hear them now, or you could defer them to the agenda item. Your decision.
Yeah, I think I prefer to do them now. So, at this point on the agenda, we have the call to the public. The public may address the council on matters directly relating to city business that are not listed on the agenda, even though this, in a way, is. During the call to the public, by submitting a written request to speak form to the city clerk no later than the conclusion of the information reports updates portion of the agenda. There is a 3-minute time frame per speaker, and all comments shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any member thereof, staff, or audience. The mayor may direct a speaker to stop speaking and leave the podium or adjourn the meeting if anyone becomes disorderly or uncivil, makes personal attacks against any person or persons, or if the mayor determines that the speaker is speaking about items that are outside the city's legal authority to act. Okay, first up is Michael Pierce. Yes.
Okay, Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am here on behalf of the Verde Valley Wine Consortium, and it is an item later down on your agenda, specifically outside agency grant funding. We did submit a proposal. Paula Woolsey, who's our president, submitted the proposal. She's not here. She's down at an Office of Tourism working group specific to rebranding tourism around Arizona wine. So I think it's really important that we have our Verde Valley presence down there, and Paul is doing that for us. I want to start just by thanking the City of Cottonwood for how much you've supported us over a number of years. We've worked really well with Jack Teal, Trissa Lewis. Big shout out to them. They've been a great support. I look forward to working with the city manager coming in here as well. We have an event May 9th and 10th, 2026. It's going to be a brand new event, kind of a rework of the Verde Valley Wine Festival, which some of you have seen. We want this to be a more expansive thing for tourism and experiential visits up to the Verde Valley. So it's not just the wine festival, it's also going to be dinners and different things at different businesses throughout the community. And we're looking for seed money. So that's kind of why we are here asking for funds, and I just want to make sure that's clear. That's why I'm up here, is to ask that you consider helping us with this. Your grant has 5 pillars. We meet those in several different ways. One of them is economic development. I've been in the wine industry here now for 15 years. Something that was told to me early on is don't think of wine as the end product. It's wine, and then it's tourism, and it's the hotels, and it's the restaurants, and it's the economic development. And I think we've seen that. I think this community has seen how impactful the wine industry is to economic development. As far as workforce development, events like we're trying to put on are really workforce development for all of those types of businesses I just mentioned. Tourism, we had I can find my note. Datify had a recent meeting where they said wineries ranked #1 in what visitors said they came to the Verde Valley to do. And the Verde Valley Wine Consortium is trying to help support that and make sure that's here for the long haul. I've got some other board members here, so I'll kind of conclude my time. I think I've said what I wanted to say, but thank you, and hope to see you all around.
Thank you. Suzanne Reed?
Good evening. I am Suzanne Reed. I am the Vice President and Treasurer of the Verde Valley Wine Consortium. Thank you for allowing me a few moments of your time to consider supporting the Verde Valley Wine Consortium under your grant funding program. So I'm going to reiterate a few things that Michael has already said, but I was looking at the list of organizations that are up on the approval for tonight, and we seem to have fallen short in points under the identification of community need right here. I look at this as a report card, and maybe we weren't clear enough on expressing our importance to the community. So tonight I will try to convince you to add points so we too may be included in the fiscal year 2026 grant funding program. Just last month, the Tourism Advisory Committee meeting, Destination IQ, presented geodata, which is tracked by an open app on people's phones, of where visitors went in Cottonwood during the month of June. Wineries were ranked as #1. 30% people went to wineries during their visit. This geodata does not track feet, and it's only to those who have the open app. So it's safe to say that 30% is lower than the actual number of visitors to wineries and tasting rooms. The Verde Valley Consortium supports itself through annual memberships and income from successful local wine festivals. We support our wine industry through heavy marketing and festivals. We just placed an ad in USA Travel Today, Texas and Southwest Go Escape. This is the first time Arizona has been listed. It is in digital and in print. There is a live link to the Verde Valley Wine Trail website. USA Today emails 10 million persons, and this is viewed by over 100 million visitors online. And we are featured on page 73 with our ad. We have a QR code that takes you to the Verde Valley Wine Trail, and our organization, Verde Valley Wine Consortium, is listed as well. Also, another unknown fact is that the Verde Valley Wine Consortium does support local charities and municipalities monetarily and with bottles of wine for their fundraisers. Majority of the time, when an ask is made of us, we support the organization without hesitation and do our best to attend this event. Michael mentioned we are looking for seed money. We are going to be calling this event The Journey Through the Heart of Arizona Wine Country, featuring Desert Decanter Festival at Riverfront Park. It will be aimed at wine enthusiasts, artists, musicians, restaurants, educators, small businesses, and of course families. This event is being created to become a legacy event, replacing the popular Sedona Wine Fest and the Verde Valley Wine Festival. Just quickly, your report shows that you have $63,500 left to funding is available, and we are requesting $30,000 to help us create this new festival. So I thank you for your attention and consideration to include us in your fiscal year 2026 grant funding program.
Thank you. Tom Schumacher.
Good evening, everyone. Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Verde Valley Wine Consortium in support of this grant information that we've all been talking about. I've been a citizen, a member of Cottonwood, since the 1970s when I first moved here. And when I moved here, Old Town Cottonwood wasn't much to see, wasn't much to visit, there wasn't much to do here. I planned on raising a family here, which I did. I'm very proud of that. But I looked for something that would really make it here for the Verde Valley, that I could get behind and really support. With a few other members of the council, Cottonwood City Council, at the time their city manager, were very, very proactive in promoting the wine industry, something that I didn't think could ever be possible here. To that end, at the time I was working with Yavapai College and persuaded Yavapai College to make one of only 3 in the United States viticulture and enology programs. And that is one of the most successful programs the college runs on this side of the Yavapai County. So with all these things in mind, the Verde Valley Wine Consortium is a band of non-paid volunteers who are very, very dedicated to promoting the industry and everything associated with it here in Cottonwood. What we're asking for is this grant will turn a new leaf over for what's happening with the wine industry. And we've received not only regional notifications about it or allocations about it, but we've also received national and international by one of the things that the Wine Consortium actually promoted and finally received, took us 6 years to get it, is the Verde Valley, I'll try to read this here, the Verde Valley AVA, American Viticultural Association. That is an internationally known designation, and it has brought visitors into Cottonwood, Arizona, from around the world, literally from around the world, to see what the wine industry does. So we are asking for this very small amount of money to help us continue to promote the industry here, and I think if the council really looks seriously at it, there's kind of no way you could say no to us, and so I plead for you for that little bit of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Doug Bartosh.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Doug Bartosh. I am a resident of Cottonwood and a member of the Verde Valley Wine Consortium. In fact, I'm actually, along with Tom, one of the founders, and it's been around since 2008. The wine industry, in terms of its relationship to Cottonwood, was a calculated strategy that was developed by the council back during that time. But it was thought that if we kind of got behind the wine industry, that could be the hook for revitalizing Old Town Cottonwood. For those of you who've been here a long time, you remember back, Old Town Cottonwood was not a pretty place. In fact, it didn't really attract anybody. I see Debbie smiling. But this was the hook that would bring people back to Cottonwood, Old Town in particular. And we've seen that. We've seen that it has worked for Cottonwood. I mean, Sedona has the Red Rocks. Jerome has the mining history, those kind of things. Cottonwood has the wine industry. And from what I understand in a recent study that you guys commissioned, that 30% of the tourists who come here, the largest percentage, 30%, come here for the wine industry. And just to give you an idea of the impact that has had, I recently talked to Christian at the Chamber, who told me way back when that the bed tax was about $45,000 a year. Well, the bed tax today, from what I understand, is approaching $700,000. So that gives you an idea of what the impact has been in terms of tourism to Cottonwood. Because when I came here in 2005, tourism really didn't exist for Cottonwood. It was probably one leg of the economic stool that we didn't have. I would talk to people from around the state and ask them, hey, have you ever heard of Cottonwood? Well, they'd ask me, where are you at? I'm in Cottonwood. Where's Cottonwood? Well, have you been to Jerome? Yeah, I've been to Jerome. Have you been to Cottonwood? Yeah, well, if you went between the two, you drove through Cottonwood. And so the idea was, how do we get people to stop in Cottonwood? And the wine industry was the answer. It was, again, it didn't just happen. It wasn't happenstance. It was very calculated. It was part of the council's strategic plan. Now, I think today what really that we need to continue, which we've tried to do with a couple of different events, is create that signature event that does complement the wine industry. And I think this is probably the one that's going to do it. And it was interesting as I looked at all the requests on the list, this is really the only request that you get a real money return on your investment. It's going to bring taxes back to the city, not just the day of the festival, but over and over and over again as people return to revisit the wine industry in Old Town again. So I almost, maybe this is something for future consideration, and I know Kirsten will love this, but this may not be a community grant. This may be something that you want to consider for future years as a line item. So just something to think about. But we would certainly appreciate the council's support on this initiative. And, it's not an all or nothing proposition. Whatever the council can afford or deems appropriate, we would gladly accept and obviously find additional funds somewhere else. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Okay. Erin Mabry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I didn't plan on coming to speak tonight, but I wanted to take just a moment and thank you for your deep consideration of supporting the Verde Valley Senior Center, which will now be known as the Station on 6th. I'm Erin Mabry. I am the new executive director, permanent executive director of the Verde Valley Senior Center. And we have a lot of great plans. I really appreciate your time coming out the other day and hearing our plans and seeing the improvements that we're making, and the idea that we are really excited to partner further with our Parks and Rec and really support our senior citizens and those that are receiving meals from the senior center. I will share with you that I attended a meeting this morning with NACOG, and because of the federal cutting, they're looking at cuts themselves, those federal cuts, and what NACOG announced to us, who supports us by about a third of our budget, that they have about 2 weeks of funding that would last just 2 weeks for meals that would go out. That would barely give us enough time to let our recipients know that they would not get meals after 2 weeks. So your funding has been instrumental in how we're planning to complete this fiscal year. As you may or may not know, I started on July 3rd, so I'm on my 56th official day. So this fiscal year will be all about how we are leaning into our partnerships with both our city and our other municipalities, as well as our other funders. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes call to the public, but the issues raised, of course, will be addressed in a bit. Continuing on then, the consent agenda is next. The following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. The first item is the approval of minutes of the regular meeting held September 16th, 2025. 2 is consideration and adoption of resolution number 3364, approving the acceptance of a highway safety grant agreement with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety for DUI impaired driving enforcement patrol overtime expenses for the fiscal year 2026 in the amount not to exceed $10,000. Number 3 is consideration and adoption of resolution number 3365, approving the acceptance of a highway safety grant agreement and authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety for selective traffic enforcement patrol overtime expenses for fiscal year 2026 in an amount not to exceed $10,709. 4 is consideration and possible approval of a cooperative purchase agreement with Advanced Exercise for the purchase and replacement of fitness equipment at the Cottonwood Recreation Center for an amount not to exceed $436,900. 5 is consideration and approval of a waiver of the city's procurement policy for the award of programming and integration services from Alliance Service and Control Specialists Incorporated for the Mingus Blower and Aeration Improvements Project in an amount not to exceed $83,981. Number 6, consideration and approval of a waiver of the city's procurement policy to allow for a sole source purchase of 2 Grundfos booster pack systems from Phoenix Pumps Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $160,910. 7, consideration and award of a contract to Rural Electric Incorporated for the construction of the airport runway guidance signage, rehabilitation and precision approach path indicator, and runway end identifier lights upgrades in an amount not to exceed $486,682. Number 8, consideration and approval of an intergovernmental agreement for regional emergency operations management and disaster services between Yavapai County and the City of Cottonwood in the amount of $6,256 annually. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Quick question, as written, it says we're supposed to approve each one individually, but I just want to approve the entire consent agenda.
It does not, it does say that we approve all of them in one motion.
Each one says specifically under the number. I'm just clarifying it. So, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Wilden, correct. One
Okay.
motion to approve the
Okay,
entire.
thank you. Then I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. At this point, we do have two resolutions, which I will go back and read by title only. The first one is consideration and adoption of resolution number 3364, approving the acceptance of a highway safety grant agreement with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety for DUI impaired driving enforcement patrol overtime expenses for fiscal year 2026 in an amount not to exceed $10,000. Next is consideration and adoption of resolution number 3365, approving the acceptance of a highway safety grant agreement and authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement with the Governor's Office of Highway Safety for selective traffic enforcement patrol overtime expenses for fiscal year 2026 in an amount not to exceed $10,709. That's the consent agenda. Moving on to new business. The first is consideration and approval of task order number 1 with Kaufman Associates Incorporated for an airport traffic pattern and runway use analysis in an amount not to exceed $34,796. Good evening. Mr. Bigelow.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Ryan Bigelow, Director of Strategic Initiatives. I'm filling in for our Airport Manager, Rod Prost, this evening. Tonight we're here to ask for the approval of task order number 1 with Kaufman and Associates, our on-call planners, for the traffic pattern and runway use analysis. I will say typically this is probably something that you'd find on the consent agenda, but because there's been such an excitement about getting this done, both from the Airport Commission, the community, and our airport manager, we just wanted to make sure and pull it out and highlight it for new business. What we're doing is asking essentially a two-part analysis from Kaufman and Associates. The first, you got to know where you're going, or where you're at to know where you're going. So we're going to evaluate the existing traffic patterns and runway use at the airport. That includes the direction of the different traffic patterns, the use of a calm wind runway, and altitude of traffic patterns. So we're going to find out exactly where we're at and have good data to back that up to know where we want to go. So the second part of this analysis will be alternatives analysis and discussion. So is what we're doing exactly what we want to be doing? So once we figure out what we have, now we can start talking about where we want to go. That includes the direction of the traffic patterns, the designation of a calm wind runway, adjustments to the altitudes of the traffic pattern, modifications to the recommended path of the traffic patterns used by pilots at the airport. And we'd also like to include in that discussion, there's already a proposal of an entry and exit procedures that the Airport Commission is currently discussing, so we would include that in that analysis. So just wanted to bring this to your attention. We're excited to get this project underway and see what it brings to us. With that, I take any questions.
Are there any, does anyone have a question about this? I'm excited. Let's get this done. Woo-hoo.
I'm just as excited, yeah. Clearly.
Well, it's pretty exciting. Yeah. Okay. If there are no questions, if someone would like to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve task order number 1 with Kaufman Associates Incorporated for an airport traffic pattern and runway use analysis in an amount not to exceed $34,796.
Second.
Okay. Do we do a roll call vote on that, please?
Sure. Councilmember DeWillis?
Yes.
Councilmember Dowd?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Coates?
Yes.
And Mayor Shah?
Yes.
And that motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, next under new business is consideration and approval of staff recommendations for the allocation of fiscal year 2026 outside agency funding. Good evening, Mr. Cook.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Jeff Cook, the Accounting Manager for City of Cottonwood. Tonight presenting recommendations for the fiscal year 2026 outside agency funding program. Just a little overview of what I'll cover tonight. History of the program, some adjustments that were made based on direction to staff at the May work session where we discussed this program. We'll go over proposals received, the review committee's recommendations, and a summary of programs funded by those recommendations. So this slide should look familiar. This is a slide that we brought before you in May, going over the history of this program in Cottonwood. Hanging prior to this, which isn't represented here, is that in fiscal year 2016, this program was started as a very small program, budgeted at $15,000. It grew in fiscal year 2020 to $100,000. We pulled some line item budget groups off the line items. The direction from council was to create a competitive grant application process. Moving through the years, fiscal year 2022, we saw some duplication in applications, and in an effort to try to consolidate, we encouraged collaboration, gave bonus points. It's hard to tell if that's been real effective or not. It seems that each of these groups still, for the most part, submit their own proposals, not a lot of joint applications. The budget was increased to $150,000. During that time, there was an emphasis on supporting groups on funding groups that supported our most vulnerable populations. And so that umbrella kind of became a lens that the review committee always looked at these applications through in the program starting in fiscal year 2022. Last fiscal year, the budget was increased an additional $30,000 for $180,000 total, and the Verde Valley Senior Center, who had historically submitted for funding under this program, was removed and allocated a line item budget of $110,000. And so the discussion in May at the work session with staff and council was, what do we want to do for this fiscal year? And a large portion of that conversation centered around the senior center, whether it was really designed to or not. The ultimate solution was to require the senior center to apply for funding through this program and add the amount they were allocated in the prior year as a line item to the budget, so an additional $110,000 for a total budget amount of $290,000. We couldn't find a great solution as to, I felt in conversation with council, we were looking for a solution to include the senior center. How do we do that? How do we also manage the growing budget for this program? Because we've moved from fiscal year 2020 at $100,000 to $290,000 over the course of a 6-year period. And so the solution was that they would be included in this, but the entire budget allocation for the program may not be awarded or may not be recommended for award anyways by staff in an effort just to keep an eye on the overall program costs. And it just gave some flexibility to the program where we weren't locked in, and I think for the first time since development of the program, that was direction that staff had asked council if for when they wanted that, and received direction back that possibly. It wasn't a real definite answer, so we wanted to leave some flexibility there. Staff also received direction to continue the emphasis on serving the vulnerable populations, so same continued umbrella and heart of the program. This year we received 18 applications, double the amount of applications than we received last year. I think that's a great thing from a competitive grant or procurement kind of standpoint. You always want to promote competition, and the fact that we doubled the amount of applications, I think, is a good sign. Unfortunately, with that, the total funding requested is just under $660,000 with a program budget of $290,000. So you have requests exceeding program funding by just under $370,000. The review committee had their work cut out for them this time around. That's never easy to deal with. I also want to add and include that I recused myself from the scoring process in this program. I'm on the board for Project Rising Hope. I let the committee know that. I had no involvement in scoring. I was just there to facilitate the process, guide the process, answer any questions that the review committee members had. And so for the first time since the program has started, I didn't score proposals. The way that we typically score these is we compile a review committee. It consisted of various staff members from different departments in the city, community development, the police department, risk management, and the finance department, just looking for a kind of broad range and different sets of eyes on the program and different perspectives for a well-balanced scoring committee that you would typically want for any review committee. Those review committee members score these individually, so we send the applications to each of them. There's a point criteria, they score them, send the data back to me, I compile the information, and we land with a ranking. At that point in time, we schedule a meeting where all the committee members come together for a couple hours, discuss proposals, and then allocate the dollar values together collectively as a group. And so, it's not a perfect science. As an accountant, I like things just to line up perfectly, and the nature of the types of ways the funds are requested, some are very specific, and it's easy to point out, hey, if we fund that, we'll get X, Y in return. Others are a little more ambiguous, and so how we started this year, the committee, we looked at the top 5 proposals, roughly half. And the question was asked, are there any groups that the committee feels should be fully funded? And so you'll find that there were 3 where a committee member stood up and, or not literally stood up, but spoke for and said, I feel that this group should get full funding. There was discussion, so that would have been low-income student aid, the Science Vortex, and Verde Valley Wheel Fund. So it's like, okay, there's 3 there that we feel could be funded at 100%. On this next page, these are the applications received that aren't being recommended for any funding tonight. And we go kind of the other direction. Are there any that the review committee feels shouldn't receive funding under this program? Well, right away, 3 were identified as not eligible for funding. Buena Vista Children's Services didn't specify a dollar amount anywhere in their proposal, and they've acknowledged that. Connect the Harvest was deemed to not have a nonprofit that was recognized by the IRS, so no 501c3 paperwork or anything like that provided. And the Humane Society of Sedona, the committee felt would be ineligible because we're trying to fund groups who support citizens of Cottonwood, and although they could indirectly, we have a Humane Society of our own here. And so we land with those. And at that point in time, the committee starts going through applications one by one, having discussion, seeing if they can draw out any specific programs. So I'll give some examples. I've got examples jotted down here, but let me find. Ranked 9th on here is the Verde Valley Humane Society. So the recommendation tonight of $8,500 would allow the city to cover costs of microchips, which were identified at $1,000, and then the remaining amount would be used to reimburse actual costs for the event that they're trying to host, which is a comprehensive animal welfare wellness event. Some other examples would be Friends of the Verde River. They had a $5,000 allocation. Their entire request was $35,000, but $5,000 of that was identified as the BioBlitz, where they have the BioBlitz event. The Science Vortex had a specific breakdown of how much the SciTech Festival would cost, how much would be used for general operations at Vortex, and then how much it would cost for a coordinator. So real specific breakdowns. The low-income student aid group identified that 100% of the $25,000 was going to go directly to student aid. So that group receives requests for students in need. There's groups that evaluate those, and whether they fill the need or not, all this money would go directly to the students. And so, like any grant process, not every organization can be awarded for funding. These recommended amounts allow for 11 of the 18 groups to be funded in some fashion. Some of the groups that were not funded, we have the Wine Consortium here tonight. I think we've heard the great things that they plan on doing. They fell down low in the ranking through this, although you can't argue that they do meet the strategic pillars, but the overarching umbrella that I think the group is looking at when they're evaluating these, whether it's council's true desire or not, we felt that it was that we were looking to serve the more vulnerable populations. And so with that, there's no funding recommended for that group tonight. The Verde Valley Fair submitted 2 separate applications. One was for shade structures at the fairgrounds. Another was for fencing and materials for a fire lane and other things. Staff didn't feel like that fit kind of the heart behind this program. I mentioned this before.
Yep. Can I stop you real quick?
Yep.
You skipped over ROI. Can you tell us what they asked for?
Real Organizing Initiative, sorry. Let me find them. Their proposal was $40,000 to run 4 one-day civic participation workshops focusing on municipal government. They had a Growing Democracy Together event, and the goal of the program is to increase engagement from citizens in the City of Cottonwood local governance.
Okay, thanks.
Does that answer? Okay. Any other specific questions while we're on these? I'll entertain any while we're here.
What is the Verde Valley Wheel Fund?
Verde Valley Wheel Fund. They submitted a collaborative proposal with the Verde Valley Cyclist Coalition. Their proposed funding would aid in operating after-school mountain bike clubs at the Cottonwood Community School, Dr. Daniel Bright School, Mountain View Prep, and Oak Creek School. The funding also supports the Riding for Focus PE program, which is implemented as part of middle school PE curriculum at all of those schools as well. They've purchased mountain bikes, helmets, hydration packs. They inspect and repair those. They bring on certified mountain bike coaches, and in the past, their application demonstrated tangible results and outcomes from prior year funding. Expansion of their programs into more schools over the years as they've gone on, and they've built bike tracks. I think funding from this group has purchased sheds in the past to store their equipment. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, yep.
Mr. Cook, I wanted to ask about the Old Town Mission. They received about 43% of what they requested. They're ranked number 3, whereas the Senior Center was ranked just one higher and received over 80% of what they requested. So can you explain
Certainly.
the lower allocation?
Things were difficult with the Senior Center, quite frankly. The group historically has received $45,000 up to $110,000. And so I think that with the passing of Ms. Bremner and the timing and how everything worked out with this, there was some concern amongst the committee members that cutting this group back too far would sweep their legs out from under them when they've already experienced a tremendous loss. I'm just being quite honest with you. I mean, so that was definitely a discussion, whether it was in the scoring criteria exactly or not. They didn't feel that they should receive the entire amount requested, but they wrestled through what the right amount was, and it took a while. To be honest, they didn't know what the council's desire may be with that, and not that that really is everything that they're looking for, but they're trying to meet the council's desires and needs as they're scoring these. So they landed on $90,000 for that, whereas the Old Town Mission, their group was one of the groups that wasn't recommended for a full amount. And then I think that their application, I have notes here that it's general operations, and so they have their, let me find what they call those, the Compassion Services Program. So the back to school, emergency food boxes, they do haircuts, they have a homeless resource center, the Great Turkey Giveaway, holiday brunches, all of the great things that the mission always does. It's just one of those that doesn't exactly line up perfect science or math. When we looked at the top 5, they weren't recommended for a full amount. I think that the discussion really fell back on, was the grant funding requested really appropriate? And there was a scoring criteria for that, and they're scored in that category. When the committee comes together, they bring things to light to other committee members as that process is happening. So while you might look at a scoring criteria in an evaluation process and they score a certain, let's say they scored 50 out of, I don't have the number, but 50 out of 60 points there, one committee member could stand up and say, hey, you know, they scored it high in this area, but I feel like their program is really for general operations. They haven't identified specific dollars to specific programs, and that happens to all these groups, not just the mission.
Mr. Cook, do you have any idea of what their funding was last year, if they received any at all from us?
I know the mission has always received funding from us, and I'm shooting from the hip here. I don't know what their funding amount was last year, but I would say historically, I would feel safe to say they receive anywhere between $15,000 and $25,000 through the history of the program.
Thank you.
Mr. Cook, can you give me what the Verde Valley Homeless Coalition, why they were asking for 90? That seems high. Do they have a special project there they were working?
They didn't. That was identified by the committee through this process. Let me find my notes on them. So the proposed funding allocation, they wanted to extend hours of operation at the homeless shelter for extreme heat, cold, or other inclement weather events. They identified that state funding from last year was not renewed. A primary concern of theirs was an additional $50,000 in 1 year, by increasing those hours, as they wanted to increase hours in the proposal, they had an increase of salaries, wages, and benefits of $50,000. And there just wasn't, for a grant application and ask of $90,000, the committee didn't feel that there was enough information to support that. They also did not submit audited financials, so any request over $50,000 in this program requires audited financial statements. Those were not included.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Cook, on the score sheet, there's a category called collaborative, and no one got any points. Can you explain what that is, and do we need to take another look at that category, or?
It could be something that we could look at. I think that it's a measure that...
I take that back. There was one organization I think it is score.
Yeah, and I was going to address that in a minute, but that would be Real Fun and the Cyclist Coalition, right? I don't think the collaborative scoring criteria is meeting the desire of the council to eliminate duplication. When we brought this before councils in the past, the question was asked, we have this group doing a food pantry and this group doing a food group. How do we, and there was a large citywide effort. I think Mr. Bigelow was part of the nonprofit group who we were trying to get them to work together. So it probably is something that we should look at in the future in this program and identify that metric, or at least at that point value, isn't working if it's a desire of the council to increase collaboration.
Is there any way that you can guess or justify or whatever the number of people or dogs, in this case, benefit from each of these programs?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
In other words, do we have 10 dogs and 10 dogs benefit? Or we have 100 people and 2 benefit from it? Does that make sense? How many people benefit from each of these programs?
That information is included. I think in the summary of programs funded, there are, I don't know if we got that in there or not, some data, like the Science Vortex served 8,600 participants in 2024 alone. I think within the applications, that data is available. I just don't have it with me. Sorry.
So it is taken into consideration?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in view of that consideration too, although I realize that the senior center is near the top of the list, I'm really concerned about their current situation, especially in the current year. And I really don't want to see their funding lessened at all, and I think it would be in everyone's best interest to bring that funding up a little bit further. I would like to see them funded at least $110,000 for the current year, and maybe with another $5,000 added, because they are, the senior center, as Ms. Mabry explains, is in the process of transition. They're rebranding, they're working on new programs, and the funding from NACOG is in serious question, and I think that the number of people supported by Meals on Wheels and the significance of that program to our community and the wider community, I realize that, in a way, we kind of want to limit how much we hand them and say, well, okay, this is just for Cottonwood, so, if 40% of Meals on Wheels are for people in Cottonwood, here's your 40% allocation. However, in the current moment, that's really not, that's not a good way to look at this. We really need to consider the overall needs and the fact that this rather expansive program in immediate need of funds in a way that perhaps some of the other programs, especially those that are being fully funded at what they ask for, I really want to utilize some of the $63,500 to go toward the senior center in this moment. And then next year, we can go back and take a look at where things are then. But for the moment, for now, I would ask council to consider adding funds to the senior center. And there are some other suggestions that I would like to make about expending the remainder of the funds available.
Mayor, can we take the approach of just looking at the 63,000 and then going through and then minusing as we go? If you understand what I'm saying?
I do, because that's exactly what I did this afternoon. And I sat with it all, and I looked at what I thought, not based upon the applications, but based upon the expressed need from just a few of the ones that have been funded. Now, we've also heard from the wine consortium and their concerns, and there may be a possibility of utilizing some of the remainder of the funds. I think 30,000 seems excessive, but 10,000 might be doable if they're looking for seed money, and we can justify that in terms of its support for economic development here.
Well,
Go ahead.
I would agree with you about bumping up the senior center to what it was last year, based on the current situation. I also believe that maybe the Old Town Mission needs to be bumped up a little bit for what they do. And then lastly, I would also be in agreement with putting money towards the Verde Valley Wine Consortium, because you have to spend money to make money. The tourism is what supports these programs. Without tourism, we don't get to support these programs. So I think we have to put something in to get something out. I agree. I don't know what that amount means, but that's my philosophy is you got to spend money to make money. That's the only way we can support them is through tourism. Without tourism, we don't get to support any of these people.
And what I'd like to ask council is, does the council agree with what prior council or councils have said, which is this program should emphasize populations that are most vulnerable? And I guess my question to you, Mr. Cook, is when you look at the rank order scoring, can you say that the rank order reflects the most vulnerable populations?
I feel that the review committee kept that in mind as they were scoring. I mean, which groups on this, I don't feel that there are many that don't serve the most vulnerable populations. On this first page, I would venture to say that basically everyone on that first page falls in the category of the vulnerable populations, maybe minus the BioBlitz 5,000, but then again, that's students that program serves. And then the ones that fell to the bottom would be projects that maybe did not. So, yeah.
I guess, thank you. I thank you for taking on this process. I know it's not easy, and you and your team have done a great job and tried to manage it as well as possible. I'm in agreement with the mayor in terms of I'd like to use the full sum of money that's in the outside spending budget. I personally would like kind of a more objective and systematic approach to the award level, that meaning the rank order matters, so those at the top of the list should get more than those at the bottom, and, and so the kind of the fact that there's a difference in total amount awarded between rank order number 2 and 3 doesn't make any sense to me. So I'd like to see the subjectivity less in this process and more objective approach, so it's fair to everyone involved, and then it's a clear and transparent process, is my personal opinion. Now, do I have the solution as to how to do that? No, but that's something I think we could work on.
Okay. So here are my comments. First, full disclosure. In our pickleball tournament, we got a donation from the Verde Valley Wine Consortium. So I don't know if there's a conflict of interest there. Not only did they donate wine, but I actually won a bottle of it. So stop me if I'm not supposed to talk about this. But, one thing, I just want to give a counterpoint. All of these organizations, almost all, if not all these organizations, number one, they all do very good work. Number two, I don't think there's any dispute over this. We are for a city our size, we are very generous. And I want to make sure that our awards, that we really respect the feedback from, the committee that did a lot of hard work and probably had very many difficult discussions regarding these awards. There is $63,000 that is available. We want to be careful with that $63,000. I am not in favor of spending up the $63,000 just because we've got $63,000 available. I am not in favor of giving an organization more than they asked for. I think that's just prudent. Again, like Vice Mayor Coates, I don't have, all the solutions. I will say that objectively, don't look behind me at my bottle of wine, objectively, I think, the wine consortium makes a very good point about, what their need is, and to me, it makes an impact that organization came out in force, to, make their appeal.
And I'll just add, certainly, Council, I think the intent, this is your program, and we're just trying to follow direction as best we can. I think that was also the heart in leaving some dollars available at the end.
I want to make one other point. It is my opinion, and I could be wrong, that the federal and the state government would love to push stuff like this down on the municipalities, where they put the pressure on municipalities, to do this type of funding. And maybe in that aspect, we're ahead of the curve, but, unlike the federal, just, again, I don't know, if anything, next year, unfortunately, things may be tougher than they are this year, and so organizations, will need to be creative on how they get their funding.
Well, yeah, and I think that's part of what they're trying to do right now, because of the limitations of funding. We have allocated $290,000. Those funds are actually available. And our nonprofits need those funds. They can make good use of them. And the ones that I kind of pulled out of the pack were, I feel that the senior center needs an additional $25,000 of the remaining $63,500. I also thought Old Town Mission might be awarded another $5,000 along with Verde Valley caregivers. just because of the significance, the importance of the work that they do in our community. And then the Homeless Coalition wanted $90,000. We don't need to give them another $15,000, but I didn't understand what their need was, so I thought, well, perhaps 15, rather than just 10,000, 25,000 might be closer to what they're trying to accomplish, with another 3,500 going to the Humane Society and 10,000 to Steps to Recovery, because I am trying to keep in mind who are the most vulnerable, and these are the groups that I thought were not fully funded. Now, these are just suggestions on my part, but I think, and I don't really see any problem with sending some funding over to the wine consortium at this point. But it would have to be an agreed amount, and these are my suggestions for allocating the remaining $63,500.
I'm okay with spending the additional money. However, are we in a time crunch to do this? Do we have to decide tonight? When do they get their funding? Let's put it that way.
Typically, so we are behind on this year's program. You're not, I don't want to put you in a time crunch like you have to make a decision right now. The first quarter of the fiscal year is now. So typically, funding amounts are quarterly on a fiscal year basis, and these groups would receive their first quarter funding shortly after this meeting.
Well, I don't want to wait. I don't want to do that at all. But it sounds like we might be able to tweak it a little bit and make everybody happy and help our nonprofits. And the other thing is, we might want to consider two other things, looking at the whole program, and maybe rewording it or revamping it a bit to cover everybody. Is it a marketing expense? Is it the most vulnerable? Is it what?
Right.
For next year.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is there any amount of money that we might consider using as helping them, the city helping them get grants and teaching and that kind of thing? That would be helping everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and this program has been a living document program. It's morphed and changed, so we're more than happy to adjust to meet the needs of the council moving forward. I'm not 100% certain how it would look giving additional time. I'm not real clear on, would you?
Well, I mean, just, maybe offer classes on how they can get grants. If we hire a grant person, perhaps they could, which I think we may, perhaps they could help them in some way.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about spending a lot of our time necessarily, but it would help them.
Yeah.
Apparently.
That's what I was asking about, sorry. Yeah.
Well, again, I don't want to hold it up. But it sounds like we want to tweak it somehow, so, what do we decide on?
Well, we may need to put off some of this tweaking for another year, because we need to get this done. It sounds like we need to take care of this pretty quickly here. And these are my suggestions for how we can allocate the remainder of available funds. If you have other suggestions, fine, but it would be best if we could move forward.
Mayor, why don't we just go down the list, and we can talk about each one that we may want to. So I guess the first one, Lisa, is already fully funded, so I would say we're done with that, right? Then we'd go into the Verde Valley Senior Center. My suggestion would be we fund them for what they requested, but what does everybody else think?
I'm okay with that.
That's fine.
Okay, so that takes $20,000 off to 63, right? So we're now down to 43,000.
Right.
Old Town Mission, 47,000, they've requested, and right now they're at 20. Any thoughts on that?
$5,000, an additional $5,000 to them. I
would agree to 5,000, because I
I had 5 or 10,000, because I think that they should be more. But, any other comments?
I think I think the subsequent ones then shouldn't get full funding. I think we need to be fair about this. If the Old Town Mission is not getting close to full funding, then I don't think that rank orders 4 and 5 should be getting 100% of funding. I'm just trying to be equitable about this.
Right, and how they ranked.
But they have asked for less funding in some cases, and so, you know, instead of 47,000, Science Vortex asked for 15, and if the committee approved that, I don't want to go back and recommittee all of this. I just want to arrive at some amounts and you know, and choose the ones who were not fully funded. You know, I chose Old Town Mission, an additional 5,000, Verde Valley Caregivers, an additional 5,000, Homeless Coalition, an additional 5,000, if we move 10,000 to the Wine Consortium. 3,500 to Humane Society and 10,000 to Steps to Recovery.
Can we revisit real quick the Old Town Mission? Because what I heard from Mr. Cook was the reason why the Old Town Mission wasn't funded to the 47,000 is because they had operational things in there. So that's what concerns me, is we should be doing and helping them with projects that they have allocated, but not so much for everyday operations.
Correct, and that's normal.
They are serving a vulnerable population.
Right.
Well,
And that's why they're funded at 20,000, and I would suggest another 5,000 to them.
So my only point is, and I'll be quiet after this, is I believe in the ranking process that the city staff went through. And so I think the award level should be pegged with the rank order. That's my feeling.
Okay, but I don't agree with that. I don't think that the evaluation rank alone explains what the money is being used for. And that's where the committee came into evaluate, you know, do they think that the Old Town Mission is important? Yes, they do. They rank it right up there at number 3. But what were they asking for, and how did they support their request? That has to be taken into consideration, and we can't do it sitting here now tonight. We don't have time.
And I would say that the Homeless Coalition has the same challenge.
Correct.
They have one project that is $10,000, and the rest of it was kind of operational needs, which is why they only got $10,000.
Correct.
If they would have had $90,000 in, like, hey, we're going to do this, and maybe that fits it. So, again, I would go back to the Old Town Mission of adding, I wouldn't do the full amount, but I would do another 5,000 or 10,000. I wouldn't have an issue with that.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I'm suggesting down the line. Old Town Mission, $5,000. Verde Valley Caregivers, an additional $5,000 to $1,000. Their work is extremely important, and their volunteers are amazing. And I'm sure that they can use the money. The Homeless Coalition, another $5,000. The Humane Society, $3,500, and Steps to Recovery, an additional $10,000.
Should we?
Because that's not just operational costs, that's housing for the clients who are in those programs.
I understand that. Should we go to the Old Town Mission first and decide on what is a good balance for the council for the Old Town Mission? Anybody?
I'm getting there.
Again, how about $10,000?
I'm saying 5. Why does it have to be 10?
I'm just giving a number out there.
Well, you are. Yeah, we're just tossing numbers out there now.
Calm down.
We can do that all night long.
Council, Madam Mayor and Council, if I can offer something here.
Yes.
Is council seeing value in approving the allocations as recommended tonight and directing staff to bring back an item delving more into those that you've highlighted that already have that, with an opportunity maybe for a work session to have this back and forth and have this conversation. At that point, then each of you could bring back kind of what your recommendations would be on that additional funding for those. And I do have to agree with you, Mayor, that, you know, obviously, in future years, we could certainly look at, does allocations match ranking and kind of fine tune it as it seems to have been done every year for many years now. But I think we can get to what this council wants to do. But if there's concerns about being able to fund this first quarter, we could do it at the level that's recommended and bring back an item. Just throw it out there.
I agree with you.
I agree, that's perfect. Because we're not going to agree tonight, I can tell you that right now.
Plus it requires me to know math, and I'm out of business there.
I'm not overthinking it.
I think we should, I agree with what Mario said, I think we should do that, because it's a win-win for everybody in the long run, I think.
The only question then that remains is if we do this, if we put this off and take, break it all down, take another look at it, what does that do to the payments that are due out here in this first quarter?
So any amounts that were recommended tonight, as Mr. Cifuentes suggested, we could right away work on agreements and get quarterly amounts for these awarded amounts in order. Anything that happens subsequent to tonight, we could handle and issue agreements for the remaining amounts after that.
I mean, it doesn't sound like we're taking money away, so it shouldn't be a problem. Everybody's going to still get money.
So what we're looking for is a motion to approve this and then have a work session then on how to work, how to allocate the others. So is that one motion or two motions?
It's one motion.
One motion?
Motion to approve these recommendations.
Okay.
Can they add and
And can I offer one more thing? And I'm hearing the conversation tonight, and it's probably a fault of mine in the way that information is presented. We have evaluation rank, and we're trying to be as objective as possible, and they're listed 1 through 18. Realistically, as I hear this conversation taking place, that's like an initial ranking. It's not, and so it could be a fault of mine for not presenting the data in a more accurate way, but the recommendations with the rankings there are a little misleading in the fact that the group comes together, discusses, and one may point out things to another committee member that they didn't see, where maybe we should have directed them, okay, well, you need to adjust your score in that area. Essentially, that's what's happening, but it's not happening on paper. And so it feels a little more subjective, I think, than it is. But I just wanted to add that little piece in.
So our turn, is it one motion or two motions?
Mayor and council, my recommendation would be, the part about bringing it back, I think you can be really short and simple about that. I think city manager has heard your direction, and so I think you could focus on just approving what's here, and just, if you want it brought back regarding the remainder, I think that's all you have to say.
You doing that? You want to do that?
Okay, I think Mario has received the request, subliminally or not, of what the council would like to do to bring it back to discuss further, and I would move to approve the amounts suggested as of today.
I'd second it.
Can we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Councilmember DeWillis?
I recuse.
Okay.
Councilmember Dowell?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes.
Councilmember Weldon?
Yes?
Vice Mayor Coates?
Yes.
Mayor Shaw?
Yes.
And that motion carries.
Can I ask a favor, Mr. Cook, if there's a way to do it? I'm interested in finding out the 2024 allocations.
Certainly.
For these
Yeah, we can bring historical awarded amounts to the council.
And for next year, that as part of the packet that we show the 2025 allocations.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, next is council member request for future agenda item.
I have two. One on August 7th, 2025 of this year, of course. There was a incident that a young man took the initiative to give someone CPR that was laying on the sidewalk. He has been recognized by the Chief Saltman and the fire department, but I think that the city itself should also do something to recognize that individual. I think it's a good thing. And then I want to bring up the stipend for council.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably timely.
Yeah, I'm okay with both those.
Okay,
Do we need to take a vote?
we can.
We need to. It's part of the rules.
Okay, so,
So I make a motion that we, in the upcoming council meeting, that we visit the stipend situation for council members.
and recognize the young man who did CPR.
And I will second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anything further? Any other items for the agenda?
Are we going to discuss the schedule? Is that on the agenda?
Sorry. Yes, the tentative schedule is now attached for you folks to look at. As I mentioned, we refer to it as a tentative schedule because that will ebb and flow over time as priorities come up, and we're going to have things that sometimes, when we take a look at the agenda, and the mayor and I review the agenda, sometimes you'll have things that are going to take up a lot of time, and so in the interest of that, we may push one off one meeting. We may have another one that's coming, and that is more urgent, and we need to move it forward, and so that's as it stands now. I notice both the mayor and the vice mayor will have some travel plans coming up, and there's been a request to kind of look at either keeping an agenda light or canceling a meeting, and so this would be the opportunity for council members to kind of discuss those options.
I first just want to say thank you to Mr. Cifuentes and city staff for doing this schedule so that we can, not only recommend council agenda items, but get it on the schedule so we can plan for these important topics. I personally have a conflict with the meeting planned for the 18th. Where is that?
Me too.
October, where did it go?
For the 14th?
We're looking at November.
Did he say?
You're not-
Oh, I'm sorry, the 14th of October.
Yes.
The presentation and council discussion of the Old Town Master Plan, the proposed scope, and the timing of the master plan. I'm planning on flying to Pennsylvania that day. It's my mom's 90th birthday. But it's a really important topic, and I really would like to be present for it. I could, at 9 o'clock Pennsylvania time, remote in, but I really would rather not, so that's one request I would have if we could. I hate to postpone it because it's such an important topic, but
But could we do that for, I think it's November 4th, could we add that to the agenda for?
We could. The only issue that we have there is Mr. Ellis is departing our employment on the 16th, and he's been fairly integral in both that evening. We were also going to present the update on housing with an emphasis on affordable housing, and he's been the lead on on both of those items. So just putting that out there as you folks discuss the options here. The 16th is his last day.
He can still come and speak to the council. It's permissible. We'll allow him through the door.
One thing that was suggested, I mean, Mr. Bigelow has been involved in certainly the housing aspect of it. So could we move it to a date?
Right, can we move it to the 13th, maybe? What,
So just conduct the work session as a special meeting? Is that what you're suggesting?
That might be possible.
It is a special meeting anyway, okay. Okay. Okay.
Day, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a holiday for staff?
oh, yeah, it's Columbus Day.
We don't take Columbus Day. But yes, the city attorney advised me that since work sessions are technically special meetings anyway, we can hold them any days we want. We don't necessarily need to stick to the Tuesdays.
I can't be here on the 13th,
Yeah.
but I could be here on the 15th.
Okay. Well, can you and I figure that out when we meet tomorrow?
We can do that?
We'll work on that.
Sure.
We'll try to take everybody's schedule into account,
Okay.
okay? Anything else about the schedule of items for agendas? I think this is just here for review, is it not?
Correct. It's just kind of a placeholder to keep you folks advised of where we're at.
Okay. So, if you have no other comments about it at this point, we'll move on to claims.
I move to approve the claims report for October 7th, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
I'd like to move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.